Okay, everyone, good to have you here. It's been a while since I've done a live on this page, but just wanted to share with you some recommended reading today. I've done this in the past, and there are a lot of great books out there, a lot of good new books. There's a lot of classics. I like to read both. I like to read some of the latest stuff. In fact, Seth Godin's What is Marketing? Brand new book. If you haven't read that one, great book. But today I was reading a magazine, Direct Selling News. Many of you know I've been in the network marketing profession for 28 years. And this has to do with any type of business. This book by Stephen R. Covey called The Eighth Habit. And Stephen Covey has been one of my mentors, even though he's passed away a couple of years ago. Started out in college as a mentor of mine, as a professor in college. Melissa and I had a class with him. He taught a class, organizational behavior, in the business program at Brigham Young University. That was before he became famous. He actually wrote The 7 Habits. I believe it came out in 1989. And so I wanted to share a couple things. It's kind of a Q&A, which I thought was neat. This is from the archives, and it was with Stephen R. Covey about the Eighth Habit. Many of you have read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a book that I read annually. It is the most read book that I have as far as business books, aside from my scriptures. And this Q&A was really good. I'm just going to kind of read some of the things, but it talks about the eighth habit is about finding your voice while inspiring others to find theirs. Now, what is voice? It says here, voice equals your talent, your natural gifts, and your strengths. And we'll get back to that in a minute. But here's the question to Stephen R. Covey. What is the relationship between the eighth habit and the other 7 habits? And Stephen Covey says the 7 habits are more essential than ever. The greater the change and more difficult the challenges, the more relevant they become. The 7 habits are the foundation and are based on general truths like taking responsibility, being proactive, beginning with the end in mind, thinking win-win, sharpen the saw. All these things came from that book, 7 Habits. Now, some of them might have been around before, but I believe Stephen Covey and putting it in the 7 Habits really made those household words or terms in most corporations and most homes. Here's another question. So again, back to the fact that these are timeless principles, I believe. And the next question is, in your opinion, this has to do with my profession, how does this yearning for people to find one's voice tie in with direct selling? I think it ties into any business. But Stephen Covey says, in my mind, the direct selling industry finds a huge market in people who are frustrated with their current situation. Nobody like that, right? Well, I think that's kind of what brought me to this profession 28 years ago. I was working for a software company called Novell and had gone to school for 7 years to get my degrees, and was working 60 to 70 hours a week. Met people who'd been there longer than me, 5, 10 years longer, and I thought, is that really where I want to be 5, 10 years from now? Still working 60, 70 hours a week, not seeing my family. Melissa and I were just starting our family. Anyways, here we go. So he says, the direct selling industry finds a huge market in people who are frustrated in their current situation. These are people who are disenchanted and who are broken in spirit, that are looking for some kind of entrepreneurial opportunity where they can really use their talent and their passion towards greater good. Direct selling helps affirm these people's worth and potential and can open up a whole new alternative income stream that can make a huge difference. There goes my camera. Sorry, folks. Hopefully this is still going like it is. This is what happens when I don't have an assistant camera person. I just kind of set it up and prop it up. Hopefully we're still good. So Stephen Covey says direct selling helps affirm people's self-worth and potential and can open up a whole new alternative income stream that can make a huge difference in their life. I've worked with many in the direct selling industry, he says, and I'm pretty familiar with the kinds of realities facing this industry. These are the people that are trying to find their voice. So the Eighth Habit, highly recommend this book. I'm going to close with a couple other thoughts here. He says, what can happen to someone who is solely focused on money, on the money aspect of business, and is neglectful of the benefits of their product or service and what it can have for people who need it? I think, again, this applies to any business, but I think about how does this apply to my business in the direct selling network marketing profession. Stephen Covey says, financial success is a secondary success. Primary success is about character and contribution. I have worked with many successful people who have made a lot of money in the direct selling industry, and I found that a singular focus on financial rewards can gradually change a person. It changes their motivation, and it can change the quality of their integrity as well as their family life. So again, obviously the focus shouldn't just be on money in our business. The closing comments here I'm going to share with you really sum it up. But back to a couple of the terms. He says voice, when we're finding our voice and helping others find their voice, he's referring to finding our natural gifts and talents and helping others find theirs. Something that we're passionate about. Those things that naturally energize, excite, and motivate and inspire you. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're not excited, and what you do doesn't inspire you, then you probably should look at another profession. And he says conscience, that still small voice that assures, or that still small voice within you that assures you of what is right and that prompts you to actually do what you know is right. Okay? Doing what you know you should do even when you don't feel like doing it. And that conscience, that still small voice, following those promptings. I've heard the saying, act promptly on those promptings and you'll rarely be wrong. And let's wrap it up with this. Again, this is just my recommended reading, Eighth Habit by Stephen Covey. He says, this question to Stephen Covey, how is your concept of finding your voice much like finding your why? A common phrase used by companies that helps business owners remember why they started their business in the first place. Stephen Covey says, I really like the concept of finding your why because it is so similar to finding your voice. No matter what term you use, it's important to learn that everyone is unique in their own way. You cannot try to mold someone in your image. They must find their own style, their own way in doing business. For example, Sue might only want to make a couple $100s a month to help with a car payment. That's why she starts her own business, her home-based business, or an online business. John might want to work a little harder to earn enough to pay his oldest son's college tuition. Others may have a desire to replace their income entirely and reach income levels that they've never achieved, thus the desire to start their own business. Everyone has their own motives and dreams for what they want their own business to provide them. Everyone needs to find their own calling in life. Finding your why is just like finding your voice. Most of your books, this is the question to Stephen Covey, last question, most of your books talk about business and experiences you've drawn from researching and studying companies throughout the world. Can everyone benefit from reading The Eighth Habit regardless of business background? Stephen Covey, of course, he says absolutely. He wants everyone to read his book. It's a great book, by the way. I've listened to the audiobook. I've read the book many times. It's sitting on my bookshelf. He says absolutely this book can benefit anyone regardless of their background. Even if you're not in business, The Eighth Habit applies to anyone searching to find their calling, to find their voice. Although most of the stories he uses in his books are business stories, the principles are universal. And he says, happiness and success is a byproduct of service. So he refers to Jim Collins, a quote in his book where he says, in the book Good to Great, found that most important ingredient that brought their organizations from good to great was humility. They were servant leaders. Something to think about. So, as you're looking for something to read, maybe over the holidays, Eighth Habit by Stephen Covey, great book. If you haven't read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I would start there. That is every time I read that book, every year I learn something new. And there are books that are dated. You know, you could read it this year and next year. A lot of the things written in that book don't apply to business today, or you know, technology is constantly changing. But the principles that Stephen Covey teaches are timeless. So with that, everybody, thanks for joining me. Goodbye for now.